If we have time, we'll proceed to other aspect of Fusion 360, like the use of Canvas to create and design your 2D drawings and joint and assemblies. All right, but before we go over to today's example, okay, I noticed that this particular assignment that I gave you guys, where so many persons were finding it difficult to create this profile here or create this model here, this extrude cut operation. So many, including Badmos and Co. I saw your messages, so I noticed despite the explanation, and some persons complained that in the recorded video that was made available, that session was cut off, so they could not have access to the explanation that we did in our previous class. So I'm going to repeat it one more time. Okay, I'm going to repeat this example once again before we proceed with to this example. So let's start with this example. So, like I said in the previous class, that in order to do this, you have to create the sketch on the plane because there is no existing body. So, how do you do that? You go to your create drop down menu and scroll down to create sketch, or you select it here on the two tab. That will create sketch on any of this plane. Okay, now my sketch environment is activated. So the next step is to create two concentric circles like we have here in our drawing, two concentric circles. The smaller one is 50 millimeter diameter, while the bigger one is 60 millimeter diameter. They are both concentric to each other. So I will activate my circle command using the keyboard letter C, or you can select it here on the toolbar. You left click on it to activate the circle tool. Then I will just draw two concentric circle and then I will dimension later. Or you can dimension while drawing. You have options to do both. Okay. But now I want to dimension after I draw the circle. So I will select the sketch dimension tool. You go to your create drop down menu and scroll down to sketch dimension. I will dimension the first one or the outside one, 60 millimeter. Type in 60 and then hit enter. Okay, I'll dimension the second one, 50 millimeter, and type in 50 and then hit enter. So now we have our two concentric circle, which is exactly what we want. So the next step is to extrude it 20 millimeter. So in order to do that, we need to exit from this sketch environment. We are done creating the sketch, so we need to move over to the solid environment. Okay, so I'm going to click on finish sketch to exit that sketch environment. Then now we are currently in our solid design environment. So we want to convert this into solid. So go to your create drop down menu and select the extrude command. The extrude command at the create drop down menu, or you can activate it also using the keyboard letter E, or you can select it here on your toolbar. All right, I will select this profile here. And then for the distance, I want it to be 20 millimeter. 20 millimeter. Okay, so mind you, you might not be seeing the extrusion here because I'm currently on the front view. If you look at my view cube here, you'll notice that I'm currently in the front view. This view cube here, when you look at this view cube, currently is positioned to the front view. Okay, so that's why you can't see the extrusion for the other side. So someone said something in the group chat that I positioned it in that isometric view before I created an extrusion. That's why I didn't have any problem. So I want to correct that statement. You can create your extrusion in any view you want. Just the only reason I positioned it in that isometric view is for you to get a better view of your extrusion, so that you'll be seeing your extrusion as it happens. Okay, so even if you are in this front view, it's looking flat. The extrusion is happening at the back. You might not see the extrusion happening, okay, but it's actually being extruded. All right, so I will click on this home icon here at the close to the view cube to change it to isometric view, or you can use your orbit tool. Okay, you can use your orbit tool to change it also. So you have both options. So you can see you can even drag this You can even drag this arrow, extrude the extrude button. You can drag the arrow to extrude it 20 in any direction, but we want it to be 20 millimeter. Then we'll click on OK. Now we are done with this. Is exactly what we want. So it's up under operation. This is the part that many of you are forgetting. This is the part Badmos and Co. This is the part. This is the part of extrusion that is you are finding it difficult to understand. This operation under the extrude command, you have this operation section. Okay, you have the option to create to convert your extrusion for your extrusion to be generated as a new body, as a join body. That is, for a join body, you are creating a new body and joining it to an existing body. So in this example now, currently you can't do that because there is no existing body in your canvas. So you have to create a new body. Okay, there is nothing, you can't even use any, you can't use any option here except the new body, because this is the first model you are creating in the canvas. There is no existing body here, so you can't create a join operation. You might, if you click OK, it might work. It's You might end up it might work actually, but in essence it didn't really join anything. Okay, you are just you just created a new body. There is no body, there is no existing body in the canvas, so you can't join or cut from or intersect or any other one. Okay, so the option, and by default Fusion sets it to a new body, meaning that you are trying to create a new body from scratch. Okay, join is you are trying to join to an existing body. You are extruding to an existing body and you want there to be the same body that is joined together, like the name implies. Why cut is you are using that profile and extruding it on a new on the an existing body, and instead of joining to that body, you are cutting away from that body. Okay, that is what we are going to use for this example. Okay, so the first one, I'll set it at new body and then click OK. Now we have this profile. So the next step is to create this cut operation here that most of you have been finding difficult to do. Okay, there are two ways you can do that. Remember, there are more than two ways to do that. You can do it in any. So you can create the sketch at the top and then extrude it downwards to this level. You can create the sketch at the center, then extrude it in both direction. Okay, then you can also create the sketch on this surface. All right, let me illustrate this. You can create the sketch at the top of this model here. You can come at the top, change it to top view. Okay, let's use the tray method. We are going to use that tray method. Okay, so let's use the tray method. The first one is to create a sketch on the top view. So how do you do that? I remember I told you, you can't create a sketch on a circular surface. All right, it's not, you only need to place it on a, you can only create a sketch on a flat surface or on a plane. Okay, you can't do that on a circular surface. So but I want to create a sketch at the top of this my model. So how do I do that? So remember I said that you can create on a plane or on a flat surface. So but now I can add a plane. We have the option to add a construction plane. That is a plane. These planes you are seeing here, you can add them to your design. So we have the option to add a plane to you have the option to add a plane. This plane under this construction plane, add a plane to the surface of that circular surface that you can create a sketch on directly. You can add a plane on that surface and then create a sketch on that plane. So that's what you are going to do. So in this case, this is a circular distance. So you're going to select the tangent constraint. Go to your construction drop down menu and scroll down to tangent. So you select the tangent constraint. Tangent plane dialog box is active, so I'm going to select the surface. Okay, now I want it exactly where I want it at the top, and I'll click OK. So I'm now going to create a sketch at the top of this circle. Now you can see we have this view, this top view is exactly what we have here. It's exactly what we have here now. This top view is exactly what we have here. So we are going to recreate this now and extrude it then. So this point to this point is 10, while this other one is 5 and 5 millimeter. All right, so we are going to do that. Okay. Before let's go ahead. So I want to the next thing we are going to do is to create you select the activate our rectangle tool. All right, I'm going to select the 2-point rectangle. Okay, draw from this point, find this point where this body snaps to, then click on it, and then draw to this point, then click again. All right, we are going to repeat that for this other edge, and then click. Okay, now, so we are going to dimension this circle, this profile, these rectangles. So we are just trying to recreate what we have here. All right, so this is exactly what we are trying to recreate. So the next step is to dimension this 60. The entire diameter is 60, outer diameter is 60. Why the distance from this point, why the distance from this point to this point is 5. The same thing is here to here is 5. But from here to here is 60. Okay. So I will activate my sketch dimension tool and dimension this side 5 mm. Okay, and dimension this one 60 mm. All right, we are going to repeat the same thing for here 60, currently set as 60, then enter, and then 5 again, then 5, and then enter. Okay, so this is, we are very close to what we have here. Okay, so but we want a profile that you can select. Let me, I don't know if I did that in the recorded video. I've forgotten if I did that. There are two in a solid, whenever you are working in this solid environment, that is when you want to extrude, you can only extrude a closed profile. We have two type of profile. We have open profiles and closed profile. So if the profile is open, meaning that if all points are not joined together, that is an open profile. When all the points are not joined together, it's an open profile. You cannot extrude it in this solid environment. You have to move over to surface environment, but we'll be treating that in our advanced classes. So why, but in this solid environment, like this one now, all the points are joined together, so this is a closed profile. Here, all the points are joined together, so this is a closed profile. Okay, you can only extrude a closed profile. So we also want that, like when you view, look at this, remember I told you we want to extrude from the top to the bottom. So I want us to be able to select this center profile here that will extrude and cut it downwards. Okay, so but currently we can't do that because there's no profile at that center. So we are going to create a closed profile for in this center, so that we'll be able to select it and extrude it downwards to cut the existing model. Or we can convert these sketches that we have here. We are going to use this rectangles we have here to convert this into a closed profile. Okay, so you have two options, closed profiles and open profile. If you are extruding in the solid environment, you cannot extrude an open profile. You have to extrude a closed profile. Make sure all the points are touching together. In this example, let me show you an example, something that looks exactly like this. Let's say, okay, let me use the rectangle tool, and then you have one box like this. Okay, you have another one. Let me draw another box that is almost similar to this. I'll show you the difference between closed and open profiles. Okay, you might run into this problem whenever you are designing. Let's say it's mistakenly you try to you just snapped it, or you just clicked your mouse to snap it at the point, but it didn't snap at that exact point, and you didn't know. Your mind probably your mind was not there, or you were not actually focused on the you are being too fast. Okay, all right. Okay, when you look at these two profile here, you can see this one. Whenever I hover around it, it get highlighted blue, telling me that, oh, this is a closed profile, and you can convert this into a solid body in the solid um, interface. Okay, but this one now, whenever I hover around, you can see nothing happens. Okay, this is an open profile. You might be looking at it like that and think, oh, this is a let me use just so that it will look perfectly. Okay, so you might be looking at this and say, oh, this is also a box, the same way this one is a box, and both points are touching. And you are looking at this like this, and you see that both points are touching here. And you say, but you are trying to extrude this. You are trying to select this now in your solid interface, but you can't extrude it. You are trying to select it, you can't select it. If I should click on extrude now, I can select this one. Okay, let me change this to orientation. Let me change the orientation. Okay, I can select this one and drag it up. You can see, but I cannot select the second one. I can't select it. It's not working. I'm trying to select, you can't select. So this is the difference between a closed and open profile. So you might be looking at your sketch profile, you're trying to select it to extrude, but it's not selecting. And you're thinking, what's wrong? I did this is a perfect square. The points are touching. No, the points are actually not touching. When you zoom in properly and in that location, okay, you find out that both points are not touching. So if I should go back to the sketch and make sure that both points touch, you will find out that it will now become a closed profile. All right, let me quickly. Okay, let's use the coincident constraint. Okay, go to your constraint drop down menu. The second one is called the coincident command. Then click on this button, this point, and click on this point, making them coincident at a point. Okay, and I say finish sketch, extrude. Then you can see that I can select both of them. Anytime I hover around it will shine. So now both of them are now closed profile. So that's the difference between those profiles. So I want us to understand that aspect. All right. So because I believe most people who are just venturing into CAD design, especially in Fusion 360 or in like SolidWorks on Shape, you might run into this problem. So it's very important to take note of that. Um, then the next step, I remember I told you need to create a closed profile here, either using this existing sketch or you create a new sketch. You can come and create a new rectangle here to so that we'll be able to select this and extrude it against the existing body. So, but rather than doing that, you can just select your line command, come to this point, join here, come to this point, and then join it here. Okay, now we have a closed profile at the center. Now, when I hover around it, you can see I can select this for extrusion. Likewise, this also, but this is what we need. So I'll say okay. Then I will activate the extrude command. So now we want to cut our operation to get exactly what we have here. Remember I told you we are going to do it. Okay, because of time, I might end up doing it in just two ways, or I might not be able to do it the third using the third method. So now we are going to cut from the top to the bottom. So it doesn't matter because I was seeing some persons explaining something. They are right, but they are not completely correct. You can actually create all these extrude cuts from any direction you want. Okay, so imagine now you drew your own at the top here. You can select the profile. Okay, if I should drag it up, it's creating new body because it's moving against, and there's nothing here. There's nothing here that is extruding against or extruding on. Okay, so that's why it's creating a new body. But if you extrude it against an existing body or on top an existing body, it will begin to cut that body. All right, this is exactly what we have here. See, it's beginning to cut this body because we are not extruding it against that existing body. So go back to this or your operation tab in your extrude dialog box. This operation tab, you can see that it has changed to cut. Okay, but if it doesn't change, let's say for instance now you are not trying to cut, you are trying to join. You want to join it, you want to extrude and join it to this body. You can go to the operation and then switch it to join. Join is the first one. You can see it has joined, it has extruded and joined to that body. Okay, that's the difference. You can make it to be a new body. Okay, so when I click OK, there will be you are going to have two different bodies here. Go to your browser tab. Okay, now we have body one and body two. That's because we used new body. Okay, so it created a new body for us. But I want it to cut out from this operation so that we can have something like this. So instead of using new body or join, you will now use cut. Just change it to cut this operation. That's what most of you have been finding difficult to do. Just extrude it against that body that you are, or on top that body that you want to cut. Then change the operation to cut. That's it, and say okay. Now you have your cut design. You have your final design. This is it. Exactly what we have here. Exactly what we have here. So this very, as you can see, this is very simple. The same thing. Remember, like in the last example. Okay, let me delete this. Okay, let me quickly delete this. Okay, in the last example, what we did is that we created a sketch here at the top, at this side, rather than the top. We created a sketch here. Okay, so let's do it again. Let's create a tangent plane on this surface. Okay, now it's bent. Want it to be at, want it to be on this side. Want it to be exactly on this side. Hold on. Let me make sure this is perfectly. Okay, sorry. Okay, 0 want it to be on this corner. So I'll say okay. Exactly, this is the angle we used. So we'll say okay, we've created a construction plane on this side. Remember, the first one we did was on top. So the second one now will now be from the side. Okay, and mind you, remember the first one we did, we extruded for we did a complete rectangle and extruded the entire everything. But this one we are going to only extrude half of it. Okay, just watch and learn. Now we are going to create a sketch on this plane. Okay, all right. Activate our rectangle tool and then draw a rectangle. Remember, in the one I did at the top, we drew the entire thing and then extruded. But this time around, we want to draw half. So I'm just showing you different method you can create your your profile. You can end up with the same result even when you are using different method. Okay, so I'm going to dimension this. According to this, rather than going the entire distance, I can go halfway. Okay, 60 divided by 2, I'll get 30. Okay, why we have 5 millimeter here, 5 millimeter here, meaning that this center one will be 10 millimeters. So we are going to use that to dimension this our model. So we select the sketch dimension, click here, 10. Currently still set at 10. Then click here, 30. Okay, it's already at 30. But we're going to, just to be sure that this thing is at the center, we are going to dimension it also. From here to here, it should be 5. Cancel. From here to here should be 5. Okay, then from here, okay, so I think this current is perfectly at the center. Currently this one is at the center, so we have this the other half of it. So we were going to work with just this one. Then I'll click on finish sketch. Okay, then back to our isometric view. So you remember the first one I used the full rectangle. This time I'm going to use half rectangle. So I will now go to my extrude dialog box, select this profile. Okay, if it has been selected for us, but if yours isn't selected, you can select this one. All right, then if you extrude this way, you can see it's creating new body. But if you extrude against that body, against that existing body, you can see and the operation now has changed to cut. All right, if it doesn't change, you change it to cut. So you're probably by default Fusion might change it to join operation, now creating a new body and joining it to the existing one. Then you now will now come to the operation section and then change it to cut and then say okay. Okay, you see now. So I cut it all the way through. Okay, but if I was using the full rectangle now from the top to the bottom, I probably might have cut it halfway so that I will get that profile I want. Okay, hope you understand. Okay, now I've cut it all the way through to get, and we end up with the same result. But if I decided to make this now, uh, let's say let us mirror this sketch profile into this too. So in order to mirror that, activate my mirror command and select the lines I want to mirror. Okay, then the mirror line, the center line I want to mirror it to this other side. So I'll select that center line. So our line will mirror. So we have the full rectangle. Okay, you can trim out this one if you like, but you can also leave it and select both. And I say okay. Then I'll come to my extrude dialog box and I'll select this second one, just like the example we did the first time. So you can see it's cut. If it cuts all through, you are going to have two separate rings. Okay, remember, see how I'm using different method to create design. But now I don't want to cut all through because I'm using the full distance. So I'm going to cut halfway. Let's say 40, and I say okay. So that will end up with the same result. Okay, you can see. I can also change this to make it look like the example we are doing, and I say 30. I say okay. Now you can see we have the same result again, arrive at the same result, which is exactly what we have here. Then for the last method of doing this again is another method you can see. Let us okay, let me delete this once more and delete. Now we want to create a sketch now. I think this time we're going to create a sketch on this origin plane. Using the origin planes, these three origin planes, we'll select this one because this one is positioned exactly at the center. So we're going this time around, we're going to create a sketch at the center, either using this one or this one. This one, the third one isn't positioned at the center, it's positioned at the side. So we're going to use any of these. So I'm going to select this one. Okay, now we have our sketch. So the next thing I'm going to do is to select the rectangle tool, activate our rectangle tool, then draw a rectangle. Okay, so remember our rectangle is 10 by 16. So use the sketch dimension, select the sketch dimension, dimension this one 10. Okay, yeah, okay, good with this. Then the length 16 is perfect. Then make sure it's perfectly dimension to this. This is 5. Okay, so I'm okay with this. Then I'll say finish sketch. Now when you look at this, the sketch profile is at the center. Okay, the first one we did it at the top, the second one was at the side, the third one now is at the center. So I can come here to your extrude and select the sketch profile and extrude it in one direction against this existing body, and we will get our cut operation. And I say okay, you can see you still end up at the same result. So there is no one way of creating a particular design. All you need to do is to understand how these operations happen, how to use these tools to create this operation. So you should try using this extrude command, especially this extrude and revolve. Try using them, try out different examples. Okay, this is one of the reasons we are giving you assignments, so that you try out this in different method, in different geometries, so you understand how they work. The essence is not even creating this particular doing this particular assignment or creating this particular design. The essence of all these things is for you to understand how these tools operate or how these tools function, so that whenever you are designing complex models, you know how to use them or when to use them. Okay, so I believe this explains this example. I believe this explains the problem. Okay, so I don't know. Before I proceed, I want to know: do anyone have any question as regards to that? Please, if you have any question, please indicate. Okay, so I should proceed now. All right, no question. So can you guys still hear me? Please let me confirm if you guys can hear me before I proceed. Please indicate in the chat box so that I'll know I'm not talking to myself. Ibrahim, you said no, I don't. Please elaborate. I don't understand. Is it that you can't hear me or you don't understand the example? Ibrahim Badmos. Okay, all right. Okay, all right, that's fine. So let's proceed. Okay, so if you guys have any question, you endeavor to drop them in the chat box so that drop them in the chat box. I will attend to them whenever I see um, the questions. So please, Engineer Christopher, please, if I would like you to drop the attendance now on the chat box so that they can start filling the attendance so that it won't get choked up towards the end of the class. Please, Engineer Christopher, please drop the attendance in the chat box. Today's the course code for today's class is Fusion Day 3. The course code for today's class is Fusion Day 3. Fusion Day 3. All right, let's proceed. Okay, for our next example, I would like us to do a design of our simple bolt and nut. So the first thing we are going to do is to create a sketch. That's the first thing you always do whenever you have, it's the basic you, so you have to understand it. The creating of sketches are the basics of CAD design in any software, okay? You have to create a sketch, then proceed from that sketch. So I'll create a sketch. So we are trying to design a bolt and a nut. So the next step is to go to your create drop down menu, scroll down to polygon. Then under polygon, select the inscribed polygon. Okay. And come to the origin point here. You can draw it in any point, it doesn't matter. So I'm just using origin point for this example. Okay, it doesn't matter, you can draw anywhere you like. All right. So I'm going to click and drag the same way you create your circles. That's how you create your polygons. So you can click here. You can see we have six-sided polygon. So you have the option to create more than this. Okay. So let's go back and let's repeat this operation. Go back to your create drop down menu, then go to polygon, inscribe polygon, and then click and drag. You can see we have the diameter of the circle, the diameter of the polygon, and the number of sides. Okay, so if I want to change the diameter, let's say let's work with 30 millimeter diameter and type in. Before you click on it, you click and drag. Before you click to place it, just type in, adjust the dimension. It's advisable to adjust the dimension 30. Okay, now diameter will say, then click on tab to change it to the number of sides. Number of sides 6, you can change it to 8. That is 8 sided, that is octagon. Okay, but we want to work it. 6 is hexagon, right? So we are going to work with 6. So I'm going to type in 6. All right, now we have a perfect six-sided polygon. Okay, so now I want it to be, I'll just want this is very okay, but I want this to be horizontal. So I'm going to use the horizontal constraint. Then, all right, perfect, beautiful. Now we have this. So the next step now is to create or extrude this rather. Let's start by extruding this example. Let's do it step by step. Okay, now I'm going to extrude this. So I'll click on this, then click on extrude. Change your orientation to make sure you are viewing this perfectly. Even if you don't change, it doesn't matter. It will still extrude. Okay, now I'm okay with 20. So I'll click on OK. Now we're going to create another sketch on this surface. I will click on create sketch. This time I'm not going to create a sketch on the plane, but rather on the surface. And now we are going to activate our circle tool, center diameter circle. So I will activate it, come to the center, and then click and drag. Which values do we want? We want it to be 30. Say OK. So we select our sketch dimension to make sure it's 30. All right, so we say enter. Then we'll click on finish sketch. Okay, now we are going to extrude this center inner circle that we just drew. Activate our extrude command. Okay, now just watch. Now nothing is selected. I'm going to select this inner one. If you select this, this is not one we want, so I'll cancel that. Select the center inner circle, select it, and then extrude, drag it up, or you put in values. Okay, so I want mine to be 80 millimeter. I'm going to type in under the distance, type in 80 millimeter. Okay, then under your operations, you can see our operation will be changed to join. So you are trying to tell Fusion that it should join these two bodies, that you don't want them to be separate body. If you change it to the new body, it's going to create this as a separate body. So instead of having having a boat that is one solid body, you are going to have a boat that have two bodies. This one will be different and this will be different, so which is not realistic. So you're going to change it to join and say okay. You can see, beautiful. So our boat is now coming in shape. All right. So the next, I want to chamfer this. I want to add a little chamfer to the top of our model here. So I'm going to go to your modify drop down menu and then select chamfer. Then click on this. Okay. Don't worry about this. So I will explain on this later on. I think in our advanced class we'll talk more about all these modified tools here. There are so many tools where you can split body, split face, scale. You can scale up your design. You can use your combine draft. So all these are complex tools that we'll be talking about in our advanced classes. Okay, so the reason I added this chamfer was so that we can get a good leading whenever we are creating our thread. That was the reason I added this. Okay, because if I should create a thread now without adding this chamfer, it's going to look a bit warpy. All right. So the next thing we'll do is to create our thread on our on our boat. You know, you can't have a boat without a thread. So we have to create a thread on this boat. So you go to your create drop down menu and then scroll down to thread. Okay. I'll click to activate the thread command. They say select the face you want to apply the thread on. So I'll select this face. Okay. You can see it's coming into shape. All right. So the next one, the next box there is the model. So currently this box isn't checked yet. So its mode is currently unchecked. So if you don't check it, it will be you have this pictorial view of a thread, but a thread hasn't actually been modeled into it. So you have to click on this model for the thread to enter that body. Okay. So if you uncheck it, the thread will be showing as like a picture, but it will not be on that body. Okay, so you have to click on model to you have to click on model now to apply that thread to that body. Okay, so, but whenever, if you are into manufacturing like myself, you are always advised not to use this model feature here. Okay, you just use the pictorial view. That is this pictorial view, and then program your thread in your manufacturer workspace. But that's for advanced cases. Okay, that's for advanced cases like us that are manufacturing using Fusion 360. But in your case, you are trying to model. You are trying to show the you are trying to show the pictorial view of a thread. Okay, you are trying to display that thread, so you have to click on model to show the thread. Okay, so in the next thing is you have the option to, if you want your thread to be full length, that is the thread to occupy the entire length of that that body, you leave it at full length. But if you uncheck it, you have the option to choose the distance you want the thread to be applied on. Okay, so the other options is offset and length. So don't worry about this. Then you have the thread type. You can change any kind of thread you want and the thread sizes. Okay, you have the option to change thread sizes. You have the option to change thread type. Currently it's at 30. So you have the option to change the thread type. You can change the designation, okay, and say okay. So this is for those of us, those people in the manufacturing industry. I know that some of you are professionals who are into who are already working in the industry. So you expect for especially those that are manufacturing, you understand the thread designation and types and how to apply them. Okay. So, but for your class, this is not necessary. In our advanced classes, we will talk more on this. So click on okay. Now we have our thread. All right, we have our threaded bolt. Now we have a threaded bolt. So the next thing we are going to create is the knot that we are going to use on this. Then in order to do that, you have to create sketch again. Click on sketch and then select this plane. Okay, this time around I'll create the bolt beside it. Sorry, is someone trying to say something? Um, okay. Someone said the link isn't accepting the attendance form is okay. Sorry, let me hold on. I think yeah, I think hold on, let me go through the attendance. Okay, okay, all right. So sorry about that. The issue is from my own end. I deactivated the response. So currently now we are now accepting response. So you can go back and fill the attendance again. So it was actually locked. All right. So I'm sorry. I'm really sorry about that. The issue is from my own end. Okay. Please, Mr. Christopher, please resend the attendance link. I've resent it. So you can fill the attendance now. The course code is Fusion Day 3. Fusion Day 3. Fusion D3. Okay. We have started accepting response, so you can go and fill the attendance one more time. Okay, let's give you guys 5 minutes to fill the attendance because I want you to pay attention in this example. Okay, so 5 minutes to fill the attendance before we go ahead with our example. So please be fast. Our time is almost over. The class should end by 9:30. Okay, 2 more minutes. By 9:20, we'll continue. So remember, I said 5 minutes. Okay, so that you guys can fill the attendance. Please hurry up so that by 9:20, I'll continue. I don't have much time. Emmanuel, I think your mic is on. Please turn off your mic so that it doesn't interfere with the class. Emmanuel, okay, thank you. No problem, that's fine. Okay, let's proceed. I think it's time. All right, let's proceed. So we are trying to create a note now. We've created a boot. Now we are trying to create the note. So the same thing, we are going to repeat the same step for creating that boot. Go to your create drop down menu and select polygon. On that polygon, you select the inscribed. You can use circumscribe, you can use edge. But for this example, we are using inscribed polygon. So the same step also. You can create it anywhere you like. All right. So I'm going to use remember we use 30, right? I'm going to type it 30. Then for the size with 6. Okay, we are okay, good with 6. So say okay. All right. So the next thing we are going to do before we close the sketch environment, select the circle command, the center diameter circle, come to the center of this, and then drag and say 30. Create a 30 millimeter diameter circle, and then say okay. Finish sketch. Now the next thing is to extrude. Create an extrude operation. I'm going to activate my extrude command and then select this. then extrude it 20 millimeter. Okay, I think 20 is okay, or 25 rather, 25, and then say new body. Okay, now we want to create our boat is almost done, but we have to add the thread inside the boat. So inside the knot, rather, this is the knot, this is the boat. So remember in this, you know how your boat are not is for your boat you have the thread at the outside surface of the boat. Why for your knot you have the threaded in the inside so that you can screw them both together. So you go to your create drop down menu and scroll down to thread. Okay, the same steps also. You select the surface you want to thread. You add our model and then say okay. Don't worry about this. Other parameters, say okay. All right, now we have this. So we have our boot and our nut. Okay, so one last thing before we conclude this example, I would like us to use test one example using the assemblies command. Okay, so I want this, you want to screw this knot into this thread here. I want to screw this knot into this boot. So how do you do that? Okay, if I should select the, go to your assembly drop down menu and select the joint. You can use joint to add relationship. Okay, now it's telling us that no component in the design. So you need, for in order to create, use assemblies to carry out operations, you need to have, you can only carry out joint or assembly relationships between components and not bodies. Okay, I can now, there are two separate bodies, but they are under one component. So I can't apply a relationship or a joint to this. So in order to for me to do this now, I need to convert one of them to a component. So I'm going to convert the knot into a separate component. So I will right click on the body of the knot and then scroll to create component from body. So currently now it's a component on its own, while the body is a component, the boat is a component on its own. You can still go ahead and create a component from this. Okay, create a component from this boat again also. So we now have two components, so we can easily add joint relationship to them. All right, so I will undo this on grant for parents. Okay, I want this to be perfect like this. So you can rename them also. You can right click on this and then rename it to not, and then hit enter. The same thing with this, right click on this and then rename to boat, then enter. Now we have our boat and our knot. Okay, this is beautiful. So the next step is to add relationships. So you go to your assembly and then select your joint. Now our joint dialog box is active. The first thing is to create, select the first component. You can see you can only create joint between component and not body. So the first thing is to select the first component. So I'm going to select this component. Okay, it's telling you to snap at the point where you want it to join. So I'm going to select this center point here, this center circle here. I'll select this, hover around it until the point is, until there is a, just look at the center here. You notice that whenever I hover around this line, around this outer diameter, a point will be positioned in the center of that circle. Okay, in the center of that diameter. So I will hover around this, make sure this point is perfectly aligned at the center there, because I want this knot to be perfectly aligned at the center of that circle. So I'm going to, we've selected the first component, which is the boot. Then the second component, I'll select the knot. Okay. Okay, this is one of the reasons I didn't want us to create a full, you notice here I reduce the full length so that I'll be able to select that point. Okay, when you create a thread for the full length, trying to select the center, because the thread has been cut through, and thread is not actually, the thread pitch is not actually centered perfectly. So in order to select it, you might be finding some difficulty to get the center, but we can still work with this. I say, okay, select this. You can see, okay, it moves here. So I will undo that. This, when I selected this, the boat moved to the north, which is not what I want. You can also work with this. You can turn it, change the orientation of it. You can come here and say flip. Okay, You can see we have our bolt and our nut. All right, but this is not what I want to do. This is also okay, but I don't want it to have this simulation. Okay, so I'm going to select that. All right, so I'm going to start with selecting the nut rather than the bolt. So I'll select the nut. Okay, now I've selected the nut. Now the next, for the second component, we're going to select the bolt. Select the bolt. When I select the bolt, the nut will move towards it. All right. Okay, but it didn't move at the perfect center. So this my selection wasn't perfectly centered. So I'm going to reselect it. So I make sure I select the center. If it doesn't work, we can always go back and edit that. Okay, I think it's easier if we go back and edit so that it will not cause any confusion. All right, so this is the thread for the knot, and now edit. Remember I told you in our previous class that you don't have to undo everything, because we have this undo or undo button here. You don't have to start undoing to that place you stopped. You can just go back on your timeline and edit that operation. You can see edit feature. When I right click on it, on the second thread, there's a thread for the knot, and then right click on it and say scroll to edit feature. We'll go back to that. So I will uncheck full length. Okay, and I'll drag it to a distance, equal distance that I'm okay with. Okay, I'll drag this other one to another distance. Okay, I'm okay with this. All right, and I'll say okay. So now it will be easier for us to select the center. Okay, so that we can position it well. So let us repeat that joint operation. I'll select the joint operation. For the bolt, for the knot, to select the knot first. Knot will be the first component. Select this knot. You can see it has positioned it perfectly at the center. So you select the knot. Now the knot has been selected. And I'm going to select the bolt, which is the second component. Okay, now it's selected. You can see our knot has moved to our bolt. All right. You then change the orientation. Currently, the motion, it is set to rigid, meaning that if I should click OK, you cannot move it. It is solid. It is perfectly rigid. All right. Okay, so our body is rigid. Now I've grounded the boat now, and I'm trying to turn this knot. It's perfectly rigid. The relationship between them is that this is a rigid body. You cannot move it. But if I should go back and edit that joint operation, go to, after positioning, go to the next section, the motion, and I change it to revolute. Okay, you can see it is now rotating just like a thread is supposed to rotate. The knot is supposed to rotate on the thread of a boat. Okay, then I'll click on OK. Now we have a revolute or rotary motion between them. Now you can see how these things are rotating. So this is a perfect example of how you can use joint relationship or your assembly relationship to apply relationships or joint or bond in your designs, in your card designs. Okay, so there are so many there are so many parameters here. There are so many commands here that you can use to simulate real life simulations or real life designs or real life relationships. Okay, but they're a little bit advanced, and we will talk about them in depth in our advanced classes. So in our advanced class, you are going to go into depth in all these commands and how to use them. Okay, there are a lot of operations here. Even in the create tab, there are a lot of things we didn't do, like the Swift. Due to time, we don't have time to do many of them. The Swift, the read, the emboss, the whole command and coil and every other thing. Even on how to use in the expect and tools, your canvas and the like. So there are so many things we were not able to touch in this training due to the limitation of the time in our advanced classes. We are going to talk more on them. Okay, so I think that would be the end of today's class. But now it's time to attend to questions. If you guys have any questions, so you can drop them on the chat before we call it a day. Please, if you have any question, drop them in the chat box. If there is no question, then we can now call it a day. Thank you, Osama. Isa, Osama, Ayodeji. Thank you. I really appreciate you. Okay. It seems, let's just wait for a few minutes because I don't know if some persons are typing their own questions. You can unmute your mic also if you want to speak. You can unmute your mic. I think we are done. We are done with the class. I think this is the end of this is the last day for Fusion 360. Probably from next week we'll be going over to Prota structure. So we'll be concluding everything on Fusion 360 today. Probably we'll meet in the next class. Yes, it's very, very certain, and we are going to have the advanced class. It's very certain. More information will be passed across after this, immediately after our free training. More information will be passed across on the commencement of the advanced classes. Okay. Thank you, Abdulaziz. Thank you very much. You're most welcome. Yes, that's a very good question. Ayomide Oladele, I saw your question. You said the full length that was edited from the note. That's true. Okay, you are very, very correct. In reality, especially for those of us in manufacturing, you cannot, what I designed there, you can't actually produce that. It will not work. You can't screw it. Okay. So in reality, the thread has to go through. The thread has to go through, right? So in when you there's difference between ordinary design and design for manufacturing, or when you are doing other things like design for analysis. Okay, there are differences. Okay, because if you are manufacturing now, you don't need to worry about screwing the thread or selecting the thread or joint relationships between them in your design. You don't need to worry about that. All you have to do is to design them separately, put the thread and produce them. That is using either you are 3D printing or you are machining. Produce them. When you now produce them using the exact parameters, you now turn the thread into it will work. Okay. So when you now produce them using the exact parameters and turn the thread, it's going to work. Turn the knot against the bolt, it's going to work. Okay. So it's different from what we are trying to do. This one we are just designing. Okay. And in the process of that designing, you are trying to simulate something that looks like a boat and not. Okay, this kind of like a raw sketch. Okay, so this is like a little sketch of what a boat and not will do, and we are trying to simulate something like that. That's why I did that. Okay, but in reality, if you are trying to produce, if you are trying to design for manufacture, that design is very, very wrong. So I believe Olamide, that answers your question. In reality, you can't produce this kind of boat for them. It will not work. Okay, because the thread has to go through. So you are right. That will not be able to pass through. That's in the reality, but in the design, you can know in design you can do anything. All right. So Suleiman Ademola, you asked, can you explain on the spring you formed that in like helix? Okay, sorry, that's not a spring, that's a thread. All right. That's a thread. Let me go back to I believe you're talking about this is not a spring. This is a thread. This thing is trying to select the edges of the thread. That's why you are looking. It looks like a spring. This is not a spring. Oh. This is a thread. Let me zoom in so that you see it perfectly. This is the thread. This is the thread of a boat. Okay. This is the thread of a boat. This is not the helix, this is the thread. Okay, and you create it using going to your create drop down menu and selecting the thread command. You can see it. This is what we use to create the thread. It's not the helix. So whenever I hover around it and you are seeing this thing that moves about that looks like a spring, this is not a spring. It's like trying to select the edges of the thread. Okay, that I believe that answer your question, Ademola Suleiman. And then Sophia Esimike said, Silis, I don't really understand how you align the knot with the boot. Okay, so you don't really need to bother about the alignment. That's what this person asked, if it will work, and if it won't work, you don't need to bother about that. I had to adjust some certain things so that I'll be able to do the joint command. So technically that boot and knot is not realistic. It's not actually dimensionally correct. So you don't